Hi guys, I am Vitold and I'm coming to you with, as shocking as it sometimes happens, video on reasons why you might want to avoid a certain motorcycle. I've spent some time with Moto Guzzi V85 TT and yeah, this bike has some issues. Super strange and very surprising flaws that made me actually mad. Because I felt kind of sorry. But this is because if not for those flaws, man, this bike could be awesome. It's just so close. Those are fairly small things that look like some kinds of fails. So in other words, stupid mistakes by Moto Guzzi. I really took them hard since I feel that this bike has at least three extremely big advantages and could create a perfect blend for so many riders. But because of what you will hear from me now, it cannot fully. Usually the issues that I find are effects of a larger design decisions, but not so much here. So in the end of the day, I really hope that people in Moto Guzzi will listen and hopefully serve us with the upgrades to at least some of those issues. Now, the second key information for you guys. Every bike and every machine has some flaws or somebody doesn't like something in them. Just like here, the design of the bike may be an advantage to me. I may like it, but some of you guys may hate the way it looks. Now, this video is about all potential disadvantages, deal breakers or potential issues or issues that are there that may affect all of us, but also don't have to. If you own a V85 TT, don't get upset, especially that there already is my video about top reasons to buy this bike, because there are quite a few. So please do check that video as well to have a balanced perspective. Now, having said that, I am heading straight to the 9 points on my list that may potentially prevent some of you guys from choosing the Moto Guzzi V85 TT for your own good, perhaps. Now, the first issue was my biggest complaint and it drove me mad the most, as it spoiled what is best about this bike. And what's best is its balancing, is its agility and its ease of handling, and how encouraging it could otherwise be. It could be as good as the leader, so BMW R1250 GS in this particular aspect, but because of what I'm going to say, this dream is ruined. So the bike has a throttle control issue. What it means is that it is generally controlled by ride-by-wire technology, like so many motorcycles today. It's not a problem, but they have screwed it up. Hard to say, but it shows mostly at lower speeds and is potentially very hard to get used to. And it's about the lag. Once you're in gear and riding and you close the throttle at some point, having the bike in gear and rolling, and once you try to then open throttle again, but a little bit in that first motion, you feel certain resistance in the motion already on the grip, but it doesn't translate into the engine reacting in any way. So to counter that, you speed up opening the throttle more, and then let's say after 5 millimeters or a full centimeter of this twisting motion, the bike suddenly reacts to the throttle and it suddenly launches forward again. I compare it to a steering wheel behavior in a car, where if you've got it centered, you drive straight, then you can slightly turn the wheel in both ways just like that. But the wheels won't turn yet, so nothing happens. You'd have to turn further, and the same kind of thing happens here. So the gap in this throttle is pretty big, and you can see my first 2 out of 3 turns after leaving the dealership. I immediately felt how light and nice the bike feels after setting off, and that's encouraging and that's enjoyable. But then comes the left turn, and I close the throttle and try to open it back. I feel the resistance, so resistance means that there's something going on, but in fact there isn't anything going on, and I want to coordinate the bike to stand up back and go back straight. But you see that the engine's reaction comes later because I have to turn the throttle more, and my lean is immediately too deep for too long. The next corner I did differently, as I did not fully close and then try to open the throttle while in the process of turning. But then this happens again and I'm like, WTF? I was adding throttle and nothing was going on. But I also didn't have space to open it much more and risk shooting forward right next to those cars. And then I've been testing it a lot, and the described problem seems to be there all the time and in all gears. It just doesn't really matter in the 4th or 5th or 6th gear, as you're just not doing such precise maneuvers and the speed is larger, so there's momentum and you don't need to care whether you're slowing down or speeding up that much. So the throttle's effect on the bike isn't as significant as it is in the 1st or 2nd gear. Since it's ride-by-wire, I believe that Moto Guzzi can fix it fairly easily, at least I hope, if that's exactly the reason here. Maybe it's something else, who knows, but it definitely can start off with the throttle. The second issue may not be a deal breaker for many of you guys, but I think you should know about it before you actually get surprised and start wondering if it's just your V85 TT that's broken or not exactly, or they're all broken. I'm talking about the engine balancing. It's a V2 engine which is mounted transversely, so kind of like riding with a stick, sticking out to the sides, similarly to those in BMW Boxer engines. What this does is that up to some point it makes the bike wave left and right when you rev the bike. What on the other hand is happening at higher speeds and higher RPM is another behavior, and that might be a little bit of a problem. What happens when you have the bike at higher RPM, so with the throttle open, and then you suddenly close the throttle, is it's waving its handlebar a lot. There are certain factors that contribute to this happening more or happening less or less frequently, and at the end of the day this behavior is here in this Moto Guzzi and is pretty visible. It never happened to the point of being dangerous, but it's still taking away a certain amount of trust and confidence in the bike. Do you often close the throttle while at high RPM? Yes, you do. For example, when you change gears. There's no quick shifters here, so you basically cannot avoid it unless you hold your throttle open all the time and don't close it when changing gears. So yeah, see, it is actually more clear without a gear change, but it's there when upshifting as well. We also have to remember that it may do different things depending on how much load you put on the bike, where that load is located, what's your speed, what tires and what pressure there is in them, and at what speed you're riding at. I don't think this behavior should be there, and I'm just leaving it at that. The third reason to maybe even skip the bike for some of you guys who like to tour a lot is the vibration that its engine generates already at just slightly higher RPM. If you've heard about certain bikes vibrating, BMW S1000XR having some vibration in the 1st gen, then you haven't really heard about vibration, like I haven't really heard about the vibration before. I've ridden what, 40, 50 motorcycles over the past years, and not even one of them would transfer the vibration to the foot pegs on such a scale as this Moto Guzzi does. It literally tickles your feet. You could use it to give yourself a shaky massage, a vibrant vibration massage, whatever you call it, after a hard workout at the gym. You know, professional athletes could employ the bike to loosen their muscles, like a massage gun. It's called a massage gun. It's really a lot, and I'm generally not bothered by such things. But I also know, and I have read a ton of comments from riders mentioning the vibration in that S1000XR. Yeah, guys, try this one. On a more serious note, please be aware of it and check. I think you just have to check if you can live with it. If not, then maybe first try to replace the foot pegs if that's possible, or add more rubber to them. Now, the fourth reason to avoid the V85 TT would be a deal breaker for me, and it's that there is fairly little performance that the bike can provide. And it does provide all it's got with visible effort. It's really hard for it to go. It's a struggle. There's 76 horsepower, around 80 newton-meters of torque, and while those numbers aren't super low, they are just low numbers. There is not much fire, so it's a bike for a rider who wants to focus on cruising on some side road, let's say, or occasionally ride to the nearby town to eat lunch or to buy Italian pasta to make spaghetti. The version that I got was having a shorter windscreen, but there are also versions with a taller windscreen. I'm mentioning this as with this shorter windscreen, it's not really there to protect you from anything, and it would not be enjoyable to ride on a highway or anywhere for that matter at higher speed. I realized that I was actually the happiest, and also the bike was the happiest, at around 80 kilometers per hour, which is fairly slow. flexibility isn't really there, and I felt that it felt even weaker than the numbers could otherwise suggest. This may be because of the drive shaft eating up some of that. So yeah, the X factor and pure adrenaline from acceleration simply aren't here if this is what you need or if this is what you like. Now, the fifth reason may be that if one of your main reasons for choosing a certain bike is it having a drive shaft, then you may not be that impressed with the drive shaft here in comparison, for example, with BMW motorcycles. If you expect the same thing, it's going to be close, but it's not going to be the same. This drive shaft here behaves a lot like those 20 years ago in BMWs. It is less refined in its operation, which you can notice when you suddenly open the throttle. You will see how the bike suddenly lifts itself as if it was stepping up on its toes. Once you release the throttle, the bike drops back down. You can feel that something is up, something is going on. And while the whole idea of no maintenance, no mess and no trouble is great, this particular implementation is not the best. It's not as good as it is in some other bikes. I would still take it and I would not really complain, as you can easily live with it with no real regrets actually, but the bike will be reminding you that it's not as good and it's not as neutral of a solution, this drive shaft, as some other manufacturers can pull off. In the sixth point, the switches on the handlebar. There aren't many of them, but there are two strange approaches here. One immediately got my attention and the other one I am still not sure about. Starting from the second one, it's about how you switch the lights on and off and whatever you want to do with them, because you actually cannot switch them off. So you've got the switch on the right side of the handlebar with 3 different positions, and then you've got one more switch that's on the other side of the handlebar. It's on the left side, and this is a little bit confusing. The switch next to the left grip is to switch between high and low beam, and it is to flash. The right one is to change the type of light. And also there is this ignition button, which tends to leave riders amused and wondering why the bike doesn't start, why it doesn't want to start after pressing the starter button. And it's that this button isn't a regular button but an on-off switch that you press, it moves back along with your finger, but it stops in a slightly different spot than you had it in before. It's either in line with the surface around it, or it sticks out like 1 millimeter, which you, me and many other riders don't see at the beginning, and they don't realize in the beginning as well. So if you ever switch Moto Guzzi V85 TT off using this button, know that later to start the engine again, you've got to press it one more time because it will stop in a different position, and then you may attempt to start the bike. Otherwise, nothing will happen. You will save yourself a ton of frustration, a lot of wondering why the bike broke. So yeah, please be aware up front. Now, the seventh deal breaker actually may be the design, which is, yeah, it's original. It's really cool looking from the rear with that jet engine-like tail lamp. It may look really slick from the side, investigating this line of the bike, which may resemble a fun supermoto. And then in this version, that red frame, really sick and really nice to look at. I did like that, but from the front, I'm not a fan. If you guys like it, sure, there's no issue. You may cross it out of this list and move to the next point. If you don't like its look, then know that you're not alone. But I know that there are some people who like the styling, they do enjoy the old look, fine. So let's move straight to the eighth point, which is that the bike gets too hot quickly and you feel it. The engine is still fine, it's not like it's overheating, but it's transmitting heat straight into your legs, which are, well, they are right behind the cylinders, which are sticking to the sides. So stopping at the traffic lights or riding very slowly, you will likely feel the heat trying to burn your knees and inner thighs. It's not that it gets hot when you stand in one place for 30 minutes or in 30 Celsius degrees weather in the city, but during a warmer, even cloudy day, this may become an issue for you, like it was for me, and I didn't expect that because it wasn't that hot. If you don't stop, there will likely be enough airflow to cool the engine down and not create this whole effect. But if you ride through a town and you're a man, know that you may not be doing yourself that much good on this Moto Guzzi. And the last point on my list is that this bike lacks some up-to-date cool equipment options that other motorcycles in the category have, or, well, they can have. Maybe not all of them, but at least some of them, and at least some of those things. Yes, in the medium displacement class, none of them has a drive shaft, yay, and that can be a huge advantage of the V85. But on the other hand, you won't find keyless start here, you won't find keyless fuel cap, cornering LED light if you ride after dark. There is a regular LED light, which for me, for example, would be perfectly fine and enough. I would never need a cornering one, because I don't ride after dark on a motorcycle, I switch to the car. And also, you cannot really adjust the windscreen, as you may only tilt it, but you need tools for that. So it doesn't actually count as any kind of real adjustability to me. You cannot adjust the seat height, or at least Moto Guzzi doesn't mention it. You may get a shorter or a taller windshield. There's no quick shifter and no adjustable suspension either, electrically adjustable suspension. None of these two should, I think, be a deal breaker for many, but as you see, there may be some features that one might want to have as some other bikes have them. But here you won't find them. If you think there are any other reasons for which one may not want to get a Moto Guzzi V85 TT, or reasons that were important enough for you guys to decide not to get this bike, whether riding it or not even riding it yet, please do share them with us in the comments. And I also recommend that you broaden the perspective as much as possible and watch my other video about what's the best about this bike. I've linked it in the description. There are some strong points, so I wonder what you guys think about that side too.